You are in the middle of a presentation. Everything is going fine. And then it happens. You mispronounce one word. Just one. And in that single moment, your stomach drops, your face goes warm, and your brain lights up like an alarm system. You glance around the room. Is everyone staring? Did they all notice? Of course they noticed. How could they not notice? And even after the presentation ends, even after you go home, eat dinner, and lie down in bed, that one mispronounced word is still there, replaying, on a loop, at full volume. Like your brain has decided this is the most important event in recent human history. But here is the question that nobody stops to ask in that moment. What if almost nobody noticed? What if the thing you've been replaying for hours, the mistake that felt like a spotlight suddenly switched on above your head and announced your failure to the entire room? What if it barely registered for anyone else? What if it was gone from their minds before you even finished the sentence? Because here is the thing. This does not just happen in presentations. It happens everywhere. You trip on a flat surface in a busy street and spin around convinced that every single person within 100 meters saw it and is still thinking about it. You send a message with a typo and spend the next 20 minutes wondering if the person on the other end thinks you were careless. You show up somewhere and realize your shoes do not match, and for the rest of the day you walk differently, stand differently, hold yourself differently, because surely everyone has noticed. You get a bad haircut and you cancel plans. You have food stuck in your teeth for one conversation and you replay that entire conversation wondering what the other person was really thinking. You walk out of a bathroom with the door handle still wet, and you are convinced the next 3 people who touch it will somehow know it was you. Sound familiar? Of course it does. Because every single one of us has felt this. This feeling that we are standing under a bright, unforgiving spotlight while the rest of the world watches. And the question, the real question, is why? Why does the human brain do this to us? Why does it so consistently, so confidently, so cruelly convince us that we are the center of everyone else's attention? That feeling has a name. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. And once you understand what it is, where it comes from, and what is actually happening inside your brain when you feel it, you will never experience an embarrassing moment quite the same way again. Picture this: a crowd of stick figures, all walking in different directions, and above each one, invisible to everyone except themselves, a spotlight. Every single person walking around is convinced that their spotlight is the brightest one in the room. Every single person is the star of their own story, convinced that everyone else in the crowd is watching them, judging them, cataloging their mistakes. But here is what it looks like from the outside. Everyone is too busy managing their own spotlight to look at yours. That is the spotlight effect in its simplest form. The gap between how much attention we think we are getting and how much attention we are actually getting. And that gap, it turns out, is enormous. Now here is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Because researchers did not just theorize about this, they actually tested it. And the way they tested it is one of the most entertaining experiments in the history of psychology. A group of researchers gathered a set of student volunteers and asked them to do something uncomfortable. They asked them to put on an embarrassing t-shirt, one with a large, very recognizable, impossible to miss face printed on it, and then walk into a room full of other students. The volunteers wearing the embarrassing shirt were then asked to estimate how many people in the room had noticed what they were wearing. Think about what your answer would be. You walk into a room in a shirt that feels like it has a neon sign attached to it. You feel every eye in the room tracking you. How many people noticed? The volunteers, on average, thought that about half the people in the room had noticed their shirt, roughly 50%. Nearly everyone. Now pause on that for a second, because the actual result is what makes this experiment so powerful. When researchers asked the people in the room what they had noticed, the real number was less than half of what the shirt wearers had guessed, around 23%, less than a quarter. Half the people the volunteers were convinced had noticed them, had not noticed them at all. The spotlight they felt blazing above their heads existed almost entirely in their own minds. But why? Why does the human brain construct this illusion so automatically, so convincingly, so universally? To answer that, you have to go back much further than psychology experiments. You have to go back to where the human brain actually comes from. For hundreds of thousands of years, human beings did not live in cities or offices or classrooms. They lived in small tribes, usually somewhere between 50 and 150 people. And in a tribe that small, your reputation was not just important, it was everything. If the people around you decided you were unreliable, or weak, or untrustworthy, the consequences were not embarrassment. They were survival. Being cast out of the group, losing your status, being seen as a liability. These were not social inconveniences. They were potentially fatal. So your brain evolved to be obsessed with how you were being perceived. It evolved to monitor the social environment constantly, to catch threats to your reputation before they became serious, to treat every moment of potential judgment as a crisis worth paying full attention to. The problem is that brain is still inside your head right now. The same system that evolved to protect a prehistoric human from social rejection in a small tribe. That system is the one firing when you mispronounce a word in a meeting, or trip on the pavement, or post something on Instagram and then immediately regret it. Your brain does not know the difference between a tribe of 100 and a city of 1,000,000. It does not know that the stranger who saw you trip will forget your face in 30 seconds. It treats every social moment like a survival situation, and it turns the spotlight on. And modern life has made this so much worse. Because now the audience is not just the people in the room with you. Now the audience is potentially everyone. You post a photo, and the number of likes becomes a measure of your worth. You say something in a comment, and you spend the next hour checking if anyone replied. You sit in a Zoom meeting with your face in a little box on everyone's screen, and you become hyper-aware of every expression you make. You rewrite a text message 5 times before sending it because you cannot decide if the wording makes you sound weird. You replay one offhand comment you made in a conversation 3 days ago, and you genuinely cannot tell if it landed badly. The ancient spotlight your brain was designed to manage has been hooked up to the entire internet. No wonder it feels overwhelming. But here is the twist. And this is the part that actually changes things. While you are standing there, replaying your mistake, convinced that everyone in the room is thinking about you, everyone else in the room is doing exactly the same thing. They are replaying their own mistakes. They are managing their own spotlights. They are trapped inside their own heads, worrying about how they came across, what they said wrong, whether anyone noticed. The person you are convinced is judging you for tripping on the pavement. They are 3 blocks away now, replaying something embarrassing they said at lunch. The colleague you are sure noticed your typo. They sent 3 typos of their own this week and have already forgotten yours. We are all walking around under our own imaginary spotlights, so preoccupied with our own performance that we barely have the bandwidth to evaluate anyone else's. Here is a simple way to feel this in your own life. Think about the last time you were standing in a coffee queue. The person in front of you. What were they wearing? What did they order? Did they seem nervous, confident, distracted? You almost certainly cannot remember. Not because you are unobservant, but because you were busy being inside your own head, thinking your own thoughts, managing your own experience. Now ask yourself, why would that person remember you any better than you remember them? You are the main character of your own story. You experience every scene from inside your own perspective, which makes your every move feel significant, visible, and memorable. But to everyone around you, you are a supporting character, a brief appearance, a face in the background of their own story. People remember moments, not footnotes. And most of our most excruciating self-conscious moments are footnotes in other people's days. This does not mean your feelings are not real. They are completely real. The discomfort of embarrassment, the anxiety of being judged, the sting of a mistake, all of that is real and valid and deeply human. But the audience your brain has constructed for your worst moments is almost always far larger, far more attentive, and far more critical than the audience that actually exists. The spotlight is real, but it only shines inside your own mind. So the next time you feel it switch on, when you stumble over your words, or say the wrong thing, or walk into a room feeling like every eye just turned toward you, try to remember this. Everyone else is carrying a spotlight too, and they are far too busy managing their own light to spend very long looking at yours. Now, I want to hear from you. Think back to one moment, one embarrassing, cringe-worthy, replayed 100 times moment that you were absolutely convinced everyone noticed. And then ask yourself honestly, do you actually have any evidence that they did? Leave it in the comments. I read every single one, and I have a feeling the answers are going to be more relatable than you expect. If this video made something click for you today, give it a like. It genuinely helps more people find this content. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, because chances are you know at least one person who is a little too hard on themselves. And if you want more videos that take the hidden patterns of human psychology and make them actually make sense, subscribe. There is a lot more coming. And I promise, nobody is going to notice if you click the button a little awkwardly.